Let's get on the college football field, where I would say this offseason, the biggest storyline has been the Colorado Buffaloes, not because they're good at football or anything like that, but because they went out there and hired Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. And it is interesting, right? There's like this huge gap of how good people think they can be right away. Their over-under is actually the most bet number at BetMGM, talking about Colorado football this upcoming season. They've only got to win 4 games and you cash your ticket. The total right now is at 3.5. And now Colorado stays in the news as we find out over the weekend that they're moving back to the Big 12. First, let's start with Deion and this football season and your belief that they can win 4 football games because, dude, they got a hell of a difficult schedule.
Win 4? No. I think their wins will be, Arizona State, Arizona, and I believe Nebraska. Those might be their 3 wins this year. But there's a saving grace, and Deion's a praying man, and I don't think he prayed for this, but he got it. Because if he stayed in the Pac-12, oh my gosh. And so many things have changed where USC, UCLA leaving. So now they're leaving and going to the Big 12. And so now look at next year where, hey, we've got Kansas on the schedule.
Easy.
We've got some teams that are not necessarily going to show us what we have to prove. So there's still going to be some tough games. What's fascinating is their opening game this year is against TCU, who's going to probably be one of their consistent rivals once they get back to the Big 12 next year. It's going to be interesting, as some people say, how bad TCU destroys them, right? Does it now become a revenge game for Deion and his team for when they come back to the Big 12, or is this a statement about them moving to the Big 12 and Deion not necessarily ready for that type of prime time, if you will? But look, with Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma State's on the decline, but you got also teams like Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas. You don't feel so bad about the move now for the Colorado Buffaloes, in the sense that you feel like you can now compete even in getting prospects to come to your school to play in that division.
I don't know what the Pac-12 is going to do. It feels like at this point you just fold up the tent and go home. Because
pack it up. It's going to be pack it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Pack it up.
Pack it up with however many members you have out there. Yeah, well said. KJ Carson, Sports Machine, Sean Levine. In the case of Colorado, I'm not saying they were ever a powerhouse, but that was a cool program when I was young. They did split that national championship, right, way back in the day with Cordell Stewart. They were on that Sports Illustrated cover. And it feels
Coach
like with
McCartney
football,
with his Promise Keepers,
that's right. It feels like with football powerhouses these days don't really exist the same way, or at least it's not the same ones that it was 15, 20 years ago, where Nebraska fans will tell you that it's right around the corner, right? No, it hasn't been. You guys have been relevant for 15, 20 years. Same thing with Colorado. I hate to say it, but you even look at those Florida schools over the last, let's call it 10, 12 years. We don't know if Miami's going to be any good. We don't know if Florida or Florida State are dominant football programs. The only reason I point that out in the case of Colorado, KJ, is if they move on to the Big 12, and as you mentioned, Oklahoma and Texas and the typical quote-unquote big boys, they're going somewhere else. There's no reason Colorado can't be really relevant with this move over the next handful of years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the issue that's come up in college football is that a conference matters, right? It's the SEC and everybody else, and everybody else is trying to catch up. It's right. The SEC is one of those that's kind of like, they're like the Louisiana Purchase. You want to make this American thing big? Make us the super conference, make us everything college football, and we will determine who we want. We want Ohio State in it, they could come in it. It's south of Canada, they could be in it. So it's eastern Canada. It doesn't matter, right?
I was wondering where you were going with this one.
Right, because it's like it's south of something, so they could be in the conference. So, the SEC is doing and forcing it. It's affecting at least 3 conferences where they currently stand. The Pac-12, like you said, is disappearing. The Big 12 is starting to crater a bit. And then you also have to start looking at what's going to happen with the Big 10 and its importance, right? Because now if you're Ohio State, you're like, boy, why do we carry everything for this entire conference? So, it's really about conferences and where players want to go to get to the NFL. And I think that's where we are now. And let's just call it what it is. Where the NIL deals are is where kids are going to go. And if you're in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, you don't compete with any professional sports to take your attention away. You are the top dog thing in the entire state.